Hi guys, tonight we're going to talk about correlation versus causation. And I realize this is a unit on one variable stats, so we're just going to call our unit statistics. And so we are going to talk about causation versus correlation. So a correlation is a measure or degree of a relationship between two variables. So we did this when we did scatter plots. As one set of value increases, if the other set tends to increase, then we call this a positive correlation or a positive relationship. If, on the other hand, one set of values increases and the other one decreases, we call this a negative relationship or a negative correlation. And then if we don't see any relationship at all, if the changes in values of one set does not affect the values of the other set, we call this no correlation. We can also call it zero correlation. And when we looked at our correlation coefficient in the last unit, this is what we were looking at. Was there a relationship between the variables? So we're going to take a look at two relationships. We're going to take a look at a causal relationship. And what that means is between two events, this relation exists between two events if the occurrence of the first event causes the other event. So that would be a causal relationship. So the first event is called the cause, and the second event is called the effect. So, for example, if I stay out in the sun too long on a sunny day, the effect of that is a sunburn. So what causes the sunburn? The fact that I'm out in the sun too long. So does the sun cause a sunburn? And the answer to that is yes. So a correlation between two variables does not mean it's a causation. Correlation just means there might be a relationship, but to prove that there is a relationship, we have to prove that one thing causes the other. So on the other hand, if there is a causal relationship, then there is a correlation. So in example 1, a study shows that there's a negative correlation between a student's anxiety before a test and the student's test score. In other words, the higher the student anxiety, the lower the test score. That would be a negative correlation. So as this is increasing, the test score is decreasing. So, does anxiety cause a student to earn a low test score? And the answer to that might be sometimes. So, is there a relationship between the two? There may be a relationship, but can we prove that anxiety causes lower test scores? And the answer is no, we can't prove that. So, we will call this correlation. There might be a relationship, but we can't prove that one thing causes the other. Example 2, a study shows that there's a positive correlation between the number of hours a student spends studying and the student's score in a test. So in other words, the more hours spent studying, the higher the student's test score is. So, does more studying result in a higher grade? And the answer to that is also sometimes. So, is there a relationship between more studying and a higher test grade? Yes, there is, but we can't prove that more studying causes a higher test grade. So, we would call this also as correlation. So, on the bottom, there's room for video question 1 and 2, but I want to go over a few more examples. So correlation, what are we looking for when we're talking about correlation? And remember, correlation just means that there is some sort of a relationship. So keywords or phrases that mean correlation is linked to. Cigarette smoking is linked to ear infections in children. The children aren't cigarette smoking, the parents are. Connected to would imply correlation. So an increase in temperature is connected to an increase in ice cream sales. Tied to is another one that says correlation, shows evidence of, connection, association, relationship, likelihood. These are all things that imply there is a relationship, there's a correlation, but we can't necessarily prove there's a causation. So causation also has some keywords. So lowers, we're looking at the verb. Does cholesterol medicine lower a person's cholesterol? Does taking the medicine lower your cholesterol? Then yes, that's causation. The medicine is causing that. Improves. Does exercising improve cardiovascular health? The answer to that is yes. Decreases, causation. Causes, causation. Increases, influences, and effects. These are all words that imply causation. So we're going to take a look at a couple examples before we go questions. The temperature outside is linked to an increase in ice cream sales. So that means there's a relationship, but does the temperature outside cause ice cream sales to increase? And the answer to that is no. So this would be a correlation. There is definitely a relationship, but we can't say that the outside temperature causes ice cream sales to increase. The number of miles you drive decreases the amount of gas in the car's gas tank. So, is driving going to decrease the amount of gas you have in your gas tank? And the answer to that is yes. So this would be causation. Number 3, a company is working on determining the relationship between a worker's salary and absentee rate. So does a higher salary make people come to work more often, and a lower salary make people call in sick more often? We don't know that, but they're looking into the relationship between the two, so we're going to call that correlation. And the last one, eating chocolate may be related to an increase in acne. So does eating chocolate cause acne? Well, we don't know, but it may be related to, so we're going to call this correlation. And causation is pretty hard to prove. So to prove causation, there needs to be, it's a statistical, scientific-based research. So for example, does eating too many calories cause you to gain weight? Generally speaking, in most of the population it does. And we'll talk about more about causation and correlation in class tomorrow. So finally, multiple choice question 1. Identify whether this is an example of causation or correlation. The age and the number of toy cars owned. So, does your age determine how many toy cars you own? Is there a correlation? Does your age cause you to own more or less toy cars? Is it both correlation and causation, or neither A and B? But if you choose B, it has to be A as well. And number 2, is it possible for two things to have a causal relationship but not be correlated? And again, refer back to your notes on a causal relationship. There's a couple bullets there you can take a look at. Okay, make sure you write your answers down on your homework, and have a good night.